Hi, so this is a series where I'll try to go over a bunch of interesting Clojure functions and just explain what they do with some examples and really go into details into how to use them and how they work. So today I chose to start with everypred, which is a function that takes a set of predicates and returns a function f that returns true if all of the composing predicates return a logical true value against all of its arguments, and otherwise it just returns false. And something to pay attention to is that it is a short circuiting where it will stop execution on the first argument that triggers a logical false. Okay, so let's see some examples. So here they give an example where they check that both on a collection they check that both it is a number, each value is a number, and it is odd. And since this is a collection of numbers that are all odd, we get true. So let's see some example here. So yeah, I'm just importing string because we will need it later. Okay, so for example, let's see here. We can start with everypred, where we check that for whatever value we are passing, that it's that it's a string and it is blank. So this one will so it creates a function. So yeah, it aggregates these two predicates in a way, and it returns a function. So in that way it's very straightforward. And because every argument is a string and it is blank, here for example we will get true. And one of the, so for example here we have one example is a sample text, and the rest are empty strings. So it would return false because one of the example is one of the input in the collection doesn't match both the criteria. We can use also apply function to invoke result of every pred on a list of vectors. So say for example here we can have this apply function where we can check for every element in the collection that we have, which is in a form of a vector instead of just a sequence like this, a sequence of parameters. It can be a vector, and we can apply, you just use apply and pass in as a function the same way everypred for string and both string and a blank. SumIfN also is a function that is pretty similar to everypred. But it's everypred checks that every predicate returns true for the final result to be true. Some function just checks if one is true, then it returns true. So for example, let's see here, we have argument 15 here, which is this one. The second argument is bigger than 10. So the whole expression just returns true, even though, for example, 6 is now less than 5, and 6 is now bigger than 10, but just the first value that it finds that has true just returns it. And for the second example that we have here is, sorry, I messed up the transition here. Okay, so here we can see every argument is bigger than 5 and smaller than 10, so this form returns just false because every argument didn't match. yeah. Yeah, this one is a little bit wrong. It should have been 10. I apologize for that. So yeah, this one is a little bit wrong. It should have been 20. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, if it's 20, then it applies. Let's look at some examples. The one we saw earlier where we check every predicate and we check that both each element is a number and is odd. So this is one of them. The other example is lowercase. So let's define this lowercase here, and let's define palindrome, which just checks that if you reverse this string, it will have the same as as this word, the word that is palindrome of. And we can just apply everypred here, where we check both three predicates. A string, we check there is a string, it is lowercase, and we check there is palindrome. Here is car matches the three conditions, so it passes the test and it is true. Another example here that I have is testing if a file is, if something that is passed is a file and has extension RQ. So with that we can just do the following here. So we can define our function is file, that just checks if the parameter is a file, and we can define our function has suffix, which just given a suffix and a file, it checks that file has that suffix, so it just gets the name of the file and checks that it ends with the suffix which we would use for the extension. So next what we do is we apply everypred. So we check the file. We have this function query file that just checks if a file is named with something.rq. So with that we just reuse the functions that we just defined, is file and has suffix. So we use everypred to check that both is file and has suffix are applied, are working like on this, and then we can just on the file, and then we can just use that. Partial here you can just ignore it for now. I will do a function on it later, but it's just something that allows us to reuse the application on a function on the file. Yeah, that's all. Those are all the examples that I have. I have another not a list of examples, but another bigger example that has more code. So this here is a program that, given like a big file, can go over it and with a list of stop words that we don't want to count, and with like some length, some defined length, we want to find the top words that have at least that length and don't match those stop words. You can think of it like parsing a book and getting the top words used that don't match some stop words and are not like very short, so don't get words like or and things like that. So to do this, we just have our list of stop words. We have a test file that I have here, which just contains a bunch of text, so nothing fancy really. What we would do here is we would define something to get the words. So this is very simple. It's just just resequence. It just checks. Let me show you the documentation here. So it just returns a lazy sequence of successive matches of a pattern in a string. So it just returns the matches of pattern, and here what we want to match is just to get all the words from a line. And here we just have a function that checks that a word has size bigger than 4. That's it, our minimum length. And here we ignore all the stop words. So the way we do that is that we return only words that don't contain the stop words that we don't want to show up. And we have this function here that counts the words frequencies so that we can find the top words, the most used ones. And so it gets a file name, it reads the file, and it gets the list of lines. So it gets with line sequence, it gets from the reader, it gets the lines we want, and then from each line we get the list of words. And so we apply get words, and we convert each word to lowercase just to make our calculations easier later, and then we get all list of words in this words here. So after that we have our predicates that we defined. Remember, what we want is not containing stop words and matching the minimum length. And so we apply our function here that we want, and everypred, and we give it both predicates that we want, which are min length and ignore words, right? And now we apply the final function, which filter the list of words, which here just applies words to lines, so that we get every word in the line. And it applies the list of predicates that we have, which we want to be min length and ignore words. So we'll skip those that contain the stop words, and we will get only words that have size bigger than 4. And once we filter, we have the words that we want to get the top words from. And to do that, we just apply frequencies. And let's see. So frequencies, what it does is it returns just a map from the distinct items in a collection to the number of times that they appeared in that collection, which means that here it will return us the words and their the number of their occurrences. And then to choose the top words, if we are given like how many top words we want, we can just take that number. If we want the top 5 words, we can just take 5, and we will sort the frequencies by some value here. Okay, so we'll sort the frequencies by the value. And remember, frequencies here would give us a map from distinct items to the number of times they occur. So here we will sort by the number of times they occur in a like descendant way. So we would have the most frequencies on top, and when we get the top 5, we'll get the top words. If you are not given any number, then we can just return 20. And so our final function here would just get the file, get the word frequencies here, which will give us this map. And once we have that, we can just count the frequencies and return them once we get them. And if we want to get like the top words displayed, we can just format it here and display the top words from frequencies. This would give us, because we didn't give a number, it would give us like the top 20 words. And format output is just displays the key and the string itself, so nothing fancy. And so if we run this on the file that I showed earlier, test.txt, that contains a bunch of words, we can see here that we get each file, Leviathan, Grade, Shawl, with the number of their occurrences. We get the top 20. And you can see here the usage of everypred that we did here, which was very handy. Yeah, so I think that's all for this function here. Yeah, that's all. I will probably do another session on another function later on. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Hope this was helpful. Bye bye.